Hey everybody, welcome to Video Shamanism. Not sure which episode this is, not keeping track, but that's okay. You can follow us a number of ways on YouTube, all that stuff. But hey, it's good to be here. It's good to be here with my good friend John Allen. How are you today, John?
I'm doing better than average, but not wonderful. But it's okay.
That's I love. I was telling you before I was doing a podcast with Kara, and we were going into this thing about like talking about batteries and positive and negative and the new age, and there's always that new age thing of like positive vibes only, or like, you want to not have or resist the negative bad stuff that's going on. It's like if you're having negative thoughts or anything bad's happening, that's not good. You don't want it. So even if it's not wonderful, that's totally okay. That's we should acknowledge that.
I agree. Yeah, I always tell people like if you're sad or something, like be sad because if the feeling's there, it's there for a reason. I mean, you don't want to like go too deep into it and like embrace it and have sadness become your life. But if you're feeling sad, like have a good cry or something like that. Don't be like just block it out and be like, no, I got to stay positive. I got to make myself feel better. It's like, yeah, in the long run you do. But if you're having a rough night, just have a rough night and watch a sad movie or cry on the couch or cry in your pillow or you know curse the world or do what you got to do. But neglecting those feelings is not doing yourself any service either because it's just going to come back. It's like I feel like we've probably talked about this before, but if you got to take a big dump and you keep holding it, it's going to come one way or another. It's going to go away, but it's going to come back, twice as hard. So if you're sad, just have a cry and embrace it. And if you're not having a great day, then don't be like, oh, no, I am having a good day. It's a good day. Yeah, it's totally good. But on the inside, you're like, no, fuck you. So
Yeah,
if it's an average day, it's an average day. That's fine. There's a lot of those.
it's
Even though
like a double negative at that point.
right, yeah, exactly. Even though it is a Good Friday, so I guess you're supposed to be good.
The irony, good vibes
Yeah.
only. Meanwhile, it's a
Meanwhile, they killed Jesus on Good
yeah,
Friday.
the day that Jesus got killed called Good Friday. What's that all about? Who decided that shit? What the hell were they thinking?
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So Good Friday, 420, Hitler's birthday, Earth Day, Hitler birthday, 420, all the same,
Mm-hmm.
and then Easter, Game of Thrones.
And then Game
So
of Thrones.
this is probably one of the most interesting Easter weekends in a long time.
And for Milwaukee, at least, it'll be the warmest that it's been all year on Easter Sunday. So that's also interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and it just well, we have some things that we want to talk about and go over, but I just want to share with you something funny that's been happening. I showed you the video I did for Uncle Bruce on climate change where he's dressed as a maester.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun to do, but I was so surprised, I guess, naive me thinking being surprised. This one had the most negative reviews, not in a proportional sense. Like there's still a very large percentage of the majority of people are liking it and writing positive things in the comments, but there have been more than usual negative comments in this video, and it's coming from the spectrum of conspiracy land. We're on an extreme like tinfoil hat, tinfoil house, tinfoil neighborhood perspective. You've got the people saying, well, Bruce, I used to listen to you and I used to like what you said, but you're totally ignoring the fact that the government using directed energy weapons and HARP to control the weather, and this whole thing is just a big hoax. You're getting a lot of those comments. And then the other one is on the other end of that spectrum, just but climate change is just the liberal hoax and doesn't exist. And I can't believe, I used to like you, but I don't now. And there's been a consistent amount of those actually on his videos. So it's just kind of funny just to see how people are reacting to that. People saying, where's the evidence? There's no evidence. Put some more evidence for climate change. It's like, are you fucking serious? There's
I mean, it's just a hot topic, that people have strong opinions about for one reason or the other. So no matter what, anytime you press that button, as Uncle Bruce says, press somebody's buttons, you're going to get reactions. Anytime you talk about anything like climate change, which maybe 15 years ago wouldn't have been people wouldn't have been as passionate about it. But now people are very set and like, it's this or it's that or it's that. And then if you say it's one thing, you're very like against that, and you need to voice that. So in retrospect, that doesn't surprise me that he got those comments. Watching the video, I wasn't thinking, oh, this is very controversial. I just loved it because I thought it was really middle of the road, to be honest. I thought it was like, like presenting everything, not saying this or that, but he's like, we could do better, this and that. It seemed very innocent to me, but I can see now, like I said, looking back, how people, who are gung-ho about it being conspiracy or it being this or that would be upset by it because they would expect more from Bruce, or they just start a fight or, be a troll or whatever. So but that's interesting that he's getting some, internet backlash.
Internet flack with that. And yeah, that's how I thought too. It was kind of middle of the road. It wasn't the inconvenient truth narrative of, okay, so what do we do about it? We pay more taxes, or we buy electric cars, or this, that, or the other thing. That's what I wrote in the article, the essay for it. Is like that's not the solution here. That's not what the intention behind this message is all about. It's right. More just about our connection to Mother Earth and our relationship to Mother Earth, a relationship to each other, how it does play a role in this, and we could be doing better. And it's for all the people out there that think HARP or weather modification technology is going on, and I wouldn't go to say that it isn't. I'm sure there probably is stuff going on. But when it comes to that's like an Atlantean thing. That's like, we're going to control the weather. You got this big machine with a small group of people, like the Dark Crystal. They're just beaming the energy into the environment. Whereas this video, I think, addressed more of the Lemurian side of it, that it's all human beings have a relationship to Mother Earth. And if we were to band together, that would completely override something like HARP, which would be a tantamount to a Tinker toy set.
Right.
Like the power of human potential is way more influential in that whole thing. So I just thought that was kind of funny. Shit. Like you said, there's certain topics that are people are very opinionated about, but hey, it's what it is. It's, gotta good vibes only.
Good vibes only, bro. Yeah, whatever. People will be people, there's always going to be those people out there. So it's just kind of, you got to smile and brush it off and be like, oh, it's kind of a reminder that everybody lives in a different world, even though we live in the same world. And these people, they're out there. And no matter how much you do your best to provide information or good vibes or good ideas, they're still going to be like, like that.
Yes. And
nothing you could do.
A perfect segue into Game of Thrones is that exactly that, where in this latest episode, spoiler alert for anyone watching this, take that as it is. But when Jon Snow and Daenerys arrive to Winterfell and they're at that table panel thing with everybody, all the Lords of Winterfell or the Lords of the North or whatever, and they're explaining the, we brought up this army, we're going to take care of the Night King and all that stuff. Even Lyanna Stark, that like 14-year-old girl or whatever, that's just like, yeah, you were a king, but I don't know what the hell you are now.
Right.
It's like everybody in the North is just like, dude, what the fuck? You threw away even Sansa, like, you were the king and you threw away your crown. And like they all
Arya too.
Even Arya, like, don't forget your family. Like, for her to say that Sansa is the smartest person that she knows, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Did I miss something? Like that seems that was a big stretch for me to accept that. But the segue into it's like, you can come in and Jon Snow could say, yeah, winter's coming. We can explain, yeah, I saw the Night King. He was trustworthy. Everyone took his word for it. But they all kind of have this other agenda to just have a king in the North who want to unite the North now that the Boltons are gone, all that stuff. Let's unite. Jon Snow's the king. Jon Snow's been consistently the whole time saying, like, these bastards are coming. This evil force of zombies from the North are coming. And everybody's debating, like, oh, yeah, well, you are a king, and who should be the king? I feel like all that's going to be out the window the moment the White Walkers show up. The first time, like, no one has seen a White Walker except for Jon Snow and a few other people in that scenario. But once the White Walkers show up, all that stuff is going to become irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly with climate change, like we can debate all this stuff, we can have this, but the moment that things start to really get serious, which they are more and more, and dramatically, like, events will happen, but a city getting wiped out from, affecting the people making the decisions, all bets are off at that point.
Right. When it becomes personal, right? When your personal life is risked by this or that. Like Ronald Reagan's speech in the 80s or whatever, the Star Wars speech, he's like, sometimes I like to think about what an outside threat from an alien world would do to unite the people, how quickly we'd forget all of our problems. That's exactly what Game of Thrones is. They're basically an alien threat, even though it's an extension of themselves. So a metaphor there. But yeah, once it becomes like, after everyone's pointing in all these fucking living human politics, and then all of a sudden there's an army of an infinite amount of things that are just out there to kill you, then it's like, who are you going to look to? Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what they call you. They're going to be like, oh shit, John, what do we do? And they're like, well, I thought I wasn't the king,
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And like you would even fucking do that. But that's how all these people are kind of reacting. They're just dealing with the very superficial, like, oh, the throne and the crown and blah blah blah, and yeah. And like Brand said, we don't have time for this. We don't have time for this. The wall's down. They're coming. We're fucked.
But also a part of it too is, leaving and then coming back with a girl who he's obviously smitten with. I think that was part of it. It's like, we've kind of gone through that, together. It's like when this person that you're trusting is all of a sudden there's this beautiful woman whispering in his ear. It's like, well, what the fuck? Now he's compromised. No matter what, no matter who she is, they don't know her. She looks different, but he's totally in love with her. He makes the googly eyes. I mean, there's a couple of scenes in this first episode where you're just like, are they fucking middle schoolers? In the 90s, they're just like,
Yeah.
Okay, come on. So I get that from the people of the North, like seeing that, like, you went away a king and you came back like, all lovey-dovey with this blonde-haired woman.
A little bitch.
Yeah, a little bitch.
Almost sounds like what Lyanna Stark was going to say. You left as a king and now you're I don't know what you are now. Now you're a bitch. Like, sounded like she wanted to say that.
Exactly. So, I mean, they're right and they're wrong, and Jon's right and he's wrong, and Daenerys is just doing what Daenerys does. She hasn't really changed character in like 4 or 5 seasons. She's been, once she decided who she was or realized it, she's just been straight cold-blooded. So that'll be really interesting when the confrontation comes up between whenever Jon feels like revealing the fact that he's the rightful heir. And I feel like he won't do that until it's like a moment of disagreement for like the highest conflict, when they're like arguing about something, and then it'll just come out, and then
or even it's like questionable about whether or not he would even take that road to be like, well, technically I'm the king.
Well, right. But
it's like, I can see them. Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying, I feel like he wouldn't do that generally. Like that's not something he would do. I feel like he won't even tell anybody about it.
Right.
But I feel like there will be a moment where something heated will happen, and he thinks this is the right thing to do, and she thinks this is the right thing to do, and she doesn't know the North, and he knows the North, and then it could come out in a moment like that or something like that. That's how I could see it, just for the most conflict and the most drama.
And another thing that might play into that as well is now that Rhaegal, that other dragon, is clearly Jon's dragon. Like, I can imagine Daenerys and him getting into some sort of confrontation, and maybe Jon is trying to be all civil about it and talk about it. Look, I need to tell you something, and then fucking like Sam or Bran just like happens to be in the back staring at them, and like just like cut to Bran just staring at him. But Jon could be trying to explain it. Well, look, I have something I really want to tell you, and then Bran just is like, Jon's the king. Jon's the king of the throne. And forces them into that argument. I can imagine like Daenerys trying to like leave, getting on Drogon, and Rhaegal just stays with Jon, and she's trying to like corral her other dragon to leave, but that dragon is no longer hers.
Mm-hmm.
Like stays with Jon, just adding another wedge of conflict into the scenario of Daenerys being like, "Fuck."
Yeah.
So, yeah. Even that, when the White Walkers show up, all bets are off. Like all that interpersonal drama is going to fall by the wayside, I think.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. Those are the moments where you really learn about if you were in an intense moment, then you learn who you really are. And same thing with characters in the show. It's like when all bets are off, like you said, then you find out who everyone really is, and who's a bitch, and who's a warrior, and who's a leader, and who's a follower, and who's who's going to hide and who's going to turn on people.
Yeah.
You don't know. It'll be interesting. So I mean, maybe with that in mind, they're like setting as much drama up as they possibly can, because that's what the show is about. You know, the twists and the backstabbings and this and that. But then you're right. Like when it comes down to it, there's not going to be any of that when they're fighting the White Walkers. Like it just we wouldn't buy it. You know, if they were in the background, like having drama, having family drama while they're being descended upon by a million, you know, White Walkers. It's like, no, that's not gonna happen.
Not gonna happen. Like anytime they start even attempting to talk about that type of stuff, they're letting their guard down to be plunged in the heart with a friggin' ice sword or something. So yeah, that, like, even I think it was John actually said in the last season, or one of the last seasons after the Battle of the Bastards, and he's like, we find our true friends on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's where shit hits the fan. And then the way and then Sam having that conversation with John in the way that he did after finding out from Daenerys about how she executed his family. It's interesting to see, like, when that scene in Winterfell after the Battle of the Bastards, and John and Sansa were sitting up there, and Sansa basically just wanted to take away the Karstarks and the Umbers home, those two guys that sided with the Boltons. And she's like, the castle's committed no crimes. Let's give them to people that were loyal. And John was just like, no, it's the living versus the dead. We need to band together all the living North, and then the two kids, like the descendants of those rebelling families, instead of him punishing them for, you know, being on the wrong side or not obeying or whatever. He gave them an opportunity and knighted them again with the new cause. And I think after that conversation with Sam and bringing it's like, well, would Daenerys throw away her crown for the greater good? Brings up a valid question. Like, would she? I don't know. At least the way they're establishing her more in this season, she's got her eye on the prize, and she is willing to just kill anybody that doesn't agree with her. And that's a good quality I think John can understand, given the situations he's been in. But when it comes down to the morality of it, and that with everything else happening right now, it's, I don't know where it's going to go, but it's certainly ups the stakes and the drama for everything.
Absolutely. And that you saying that kind of gave me a different perspective, because that was one thing in this last episode that I was a little bit like, it seems like they just kind of threw in the fact that Sam's parents, Sam's dad and Sam's brother, were killed by Daenerys, just to like give him a reason to be mad at her so that he would actually tell Jon instead of like keeping a secret. I was like, that kind of just felt thrown in for shits and giggles and just because it's Game of Thrones. But when you said it like that, it does build her character more, that she will just kill people if they don't agree with her, and because she can, and she's kind of power hungry. So that does set her up, I guess, not redefines, but reaffirms her character and kind of what she's going for. And then putting that side by side with what you said about Jon not killing those kids and knighting them instead is a very, very two different ways of looking at it, right? And then one unites people and one, segregates people more, which points to them, if they can work together, they'd be a wonderful team, right? If they could listen to each other. And, she'd be way better at making decisions in certain situations. He'd be way better at making decisions in other situations. Like, if they could cooperate like that, that's the key for the living to live, right? But no one cooperates in Game of Thrones ever for longer than, a couple episodes. So it's kind of destined to fail unless they can find a moment where Daenerys kind of has to let go of the dream a little bit, right? Of just sitting on the Iron Throne, ruling over, what's the quote, like ruling over ashes or something like that. I think Jamie said that. And it's like, if you can kind of let that go, and then if Jon can kind of stop being a little bitch as much too, like he needs to be a little bit more ruthless.
Yeah, a little bit more politically savvy, a little bit.
Right. He's got to think of the people instead of just being like, this is the right thing to do. It's right. And it's like, okay, well, you got to think of everybody else, right? Because if you're going to rule, you have to think of the community. You can't just say, well, this is right. I know it's right. And no matter what anyone thinks, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Oh,
so they can do that. If they can find that common ground, I think that's the key to success. So if you're watching right now, Jon and Daenerys, I think that's something you should keep in mind.
It is something. It is totally. There's another scene too, from season 4 or 5 maybe, when Daenerys was in Okay, yeah, this is what it was. Daenerys. It was a cut from this scene to the next scene. The first scene was Daenerys and Marine, and there was that the Sons of the Harpy were a big problem, and she was trying to, wage justice, seek out the Sons of the Harpy and kill them, basically. But then there was one of her loyal subjects, one of the Marine, like, freed slave guys that murdered one of the Sons of the Harpy. The people that Daenerys wanted to kill, but then Daenerys made this, like, stupid decision, in my opinion, to execute that guy in front of everybody. Remember that? It was like a guy killed the Sons of the Harpy and was like, I'm protecting my queen. And then Daenerys out of nowhere was like, no, you shouldn't have murdered that guy. We want to have, like, justice. And so her solution to that was to murder the guy or execute the guy that killed one of the Sons of the Harpy. And he's like, please, my queen, I was just trying to help. And she just, like, orders Dario to execute him. And then all the people in the audience were like, they all, like, they all started throwing rocks and shit, and they had to, like, get her out of there. That was her making an executive decision that did not go well. It kind of, especially when contrasted to the next scene, which was the same time that Jon Snow became the Lord Commander at the Night's Watch. And he was up there and he was faced with a very similar thing where he had to exact a judgment or make a decision to kill somebody, just like Daenerys did, but Jon did it in a more, I think, obviously they both executed somebody that was disobeying them, but Jon did it in a much more noble way. That was the guy that came up from King's Landing who was just like a lackey for Thorne, the other guy, Sir Alistair. And he was just like, you're disobeying my direct order. And he's like, yeah, boy, I'm not going to listen to you. Who the hell you are? And then he goes outside and fucking cuts his head off. That was the scene right after the one with Daenerys. So they both had that scene where they had to make a hard decision, execute, but putting them next to each other, Daenerys fucked up there. I don't think she should have had mercy in that situation. That was the wrong person to execute at that time. Whereas Jon, when faced with that, he made the call, and fucking that was if he didn't execute him, he would have looked like a little bitch.
Right. Well, and it also the audiences were different, right? Like, so the audience wanted Jon to kill, like the people around him in the scene wanted him to kill this guy and thought that was a good decision, right? And then whereas the opposite was true with Daenerys, if she would have showed mercy, the audience, I think, would have liked that more than what actually happened. So they went against popular opinion, or she went against popular opinion. He went with popular opinion. But they
or even I don't even know if it was popular opinion per se with Jon, because it was definitely different in terms of the audience and the way they were goading for or whatever they were wanting to happen. But yeah, with Jon Snow, it was like there was at least half or a good percentage liked him and a good percentage did not like him. When it came down to the vote, who was going to be the Lord Commander, it was neck and neck between him and Sir Alistair.
Right.
Except for Maester Aemon put that one token on and tipped it to Jon. So let's just say, for all intents and purposes, half the Night's Watch liked him, half didn't, and he made a decision that ultimately was like, yeah. And that guy he executed. He didn't even know at the time was one of the guys that fucking ambushed Ned Stark when he was still alive in the courtroom, and Ned Stark showed up in season 1 with the scroll, being like, here. King Robert made me the Lord Regent of the realm, and Cersei just ripped it up.
Yeah.
And then fucking Littlefinger was like, I told you not to trust me, and like killed all of his entourage and shit. So that guy had it coming. It was very justice for him to kill him, even though he didn't know about that.
Yeah.
So all that kind of combined, it like back to what you were saying before, Daenerys and Jon have different ruling styles or different commanding styles, but if they were to work in tandem with each other and help balance each other out, they're like the dream team. So best case scenario is when the truth comes out and Bran sits there from the back shadows and fucking like, yes, staring at him like,
right.
all that happens. Like when that crazy conversation happens, imagine like a dragon chase where Daenerys gets on her dragon, leaves, and Jon to fucking go to some like distant place and they like yell at each other. And this is the only person I can imagine like Jon Snow and her having like this crazy fight, but then like having crazy makeup sex to immediately balance it out.
Right. Exactly.
That would be great. That would be the ideal situation.
Yeah, I mean, anything's possible. Anything's possible, right? I mean, they've set it up that you wouldn't be surprised if anything happened. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'm not trying to make any predictions, but I know people can't help it really. But it's part of the culture of it, which is exciting, right? You want to try to think ahead of it, but I'm just trying to go along with the ride.
Yeah, yeah.
Only 7 more episodes, right?
No,
So
only five more episodes.
5 more episodes. Fuck.
Yeah, six
Yeah.
altogether. So this one's going to be another. It will be, I think, 58 minutes around the same time they usually are. But then every episode, the last 4 episodes are all going to be an hour and 20.
Yeah. Like they're gonna have to be, man.
Yeah, yeah. So that's
So we'll see.
it's exciting. Okay, so wanted to talk a little bit about Brie Larson. So you're not aware of like any of the stuff that's been kind of going on the
No
social
idea.
media or internet, Reddit forums, all that stuff.
No
Okay.
idea.
So a few things. Number one, when Captain Marvel was released, it did well in the box office, and but like we had talked about previously, it was a good movie, but not like nothing groundbreaking necessarily. It was like a good origin story, and it had its moments, but there was also some parts in the movie that were kind of like, like it wasn't great. But thing is, now online, people would write comments, reviews, do video reviews on the movie, as everyone always does with everything. Anytime somebody started criticizing Captain Marvel, Brie Larson would like directly tweet back at them or directly comment back at them. A lot of times either directly accusing or implying that anyone that criticized this movie in any way was sexist.
Oh.
Like, because she's very much involved in the Me Too movement, and the movie was supposed to be a symbolic, like, women now can be superheroes. Yet Wonder Woman had come out, and you can go back a long time and see it's not like there have not been any strong female protagonists in movies before Wonder Woman or Captain Marvel. But there is that thing, like when Wonder Woman came out, especially Captain Marvel, there was that this is a dawn of a new era with the female superhero.
Right.
So
right.
she's had that thing, and there was the movie that was released simultaneously with Captain Marvel, pretty much piggybacked on Captain Marvel, was Unicorn Store on Netflix. Have you seen that yet?
I haven't seen that one yet. No.
I recommend. I mean, definitely check it out. I'm not going to give it really any spoiler alerts or any spoilers to the movie. So let me think about how to best address this. She directed it. It's got Samuel L. Jackson in it, and it was at Sundance. When the movie came out and people saw it, there was literally one person. This is part of the controversy. Okay. One person, not a blue check Twitter person, someone who had maybe under 500 followers on Twitter. Somebody wrote on Twitter that this movie was like, meh, mediocre, nothing aggressive, nothing sexist, just basic little tweet about how, the movie's got some hype and it's kind of mediocre. Okay. Brie Larson retweeted that and made a comment accusing that person of being sexist and in a very clearly arrogant way was like, who the hell do you think you are to say something like that about this? And then not just that, Netflix tweeted out the same thing, retweeted that same thread, and then made a list. And Netflix comment was, oh, well, it's not like Brie Larson isn't accomplished, and then made a whole list of all the things that Brie Larson's done. Like, she's made record movies. She's made won an Academy Award, won an Emmy, did this. Basically, both Brie Larson and Netflix singled out this random Twitter person who made a mediocre review on Unicorn Store, attacking them, being like, how dare you criticize this? To criticize the Unicorn Store, to criticize Brie Larson is an attack on women everywhere.
Yikes.
And that sent out a ripple storm of plenty of other people fucking making comments and making videos directly about how Brie Larson is like very arrogant and just taking things way too seriously or something, even to the point where there've been the Avengers Endgame press releases and media tours, and they have like different cast members sitting and doing interviews. And there was one where you have Don Cheadle, Brie Larson, and Chris Hemsworth all sitting down, and they're talking about questions, and different interviewers coming in. And you could tell there was some sort of conflict between Chris Hemsworth and Brie Larson. There seemed to be some sort of, jab here, jab there. And the consensus is, and based on watching it, Chris Hemsworth was being himself, just, having fun with the situation. Now, Brie Larson, however, was not into this. She was like, she said someone asked her and said, "Oh, so did you do all of your own stunts?" And she's like, "Well, yes, because I'm the strongest Avenger." And Chris Hemsworth was like, "Really? Are you the strongest?" And it was like, it seemed like all in good fun. It's like you got Thor and Captain Marvel kind of quibbling about who's the strongest Avenger. But Brie Larson was like, "Excuse me, I am the smartest." She had this like, and people are commenting about how she seemed very aggressive and pissed off at everything he was saying. And Chris Hemsworth goes, "What are you going to be like, the next Tom Cruise?" And she's like, "No, I'm going to be the next me. Thank you very much."
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it's like, and I'm not saying anything I'm not casting an opinion about this, but I'm just kind of reporting what's been happening. It's just been like the circulate online. There's either this like complete, love or respect for Brie Larson and just the traditional, hey, great actress and great job with all this stuff, we love what you do, versus Brie Larson, you are so arrogant and full of yourself and living in this bubble. Like people are either fucking hating Brie Larson or indifferent about it.
That's interesting. Yeah, I hadn't heard any or seen any of that, so I'm gonna have to look into it and see for myself, I guess. But that's that's interesting. I mean, I guess I don't know her character well enough to feel one way or the other about that. Like that I can believe it or I can't believe it. But I feel like I can. I mean, she's an actress in Hollywood at a very sensitive time, especially for women and the powerful women movement. So that's interesting. And I can, I got to look into it.
Yeah, the best first thing to do, I think, is to watch Unicorn Store. Personally, I think that movie, after going to film school and sitting through the production workshop classes where you watch your fellow film, colleagues making movies, you could tell that when you make your thesis film or you write your thesis story, it's like, yeah, that's totally what they would do. It's like you're making a movie about yourself in a lot of ways when you're doing that type of stuff. So I think since Brie Larson directed Unicorn Store, it's technically her directorial debut, and she released it at the same time as Captain Marvel. So there was a lot of press and hype around it. When you watch Unicorn Store, I think it is exactly that. It's like this is somehow a reflection of her beliefs or what she thinks. It's kind of a social commentary on the way she sees the world. And there was definitely enjoyable parts to it, as well as it wasn't completely removed from this controversy, let's just say.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that'll probably tell me more than watching any interviews or anything with her is watching that movie.
I think so. And yeah, like you said, that this is a very important time for women in Hollywood, and I'm not in the camp to think she's arrogant or any way like that. For me, the way I'm looking at this is it only makes me more fascinated and interested to see her in terms of Mandala as being Lilith. Because one of the things that we discussed with her character, one of the most important things was like her flaws or her dark side or the mishaps in her character. She wasn't just like Francis Bacon, all love and good vibes, no bad vibes kind of person. There's a lot of fucked up shit that happens with Lilith, and all this stuff that's gone on. It almost makes me think how like even more perfect she is for the story, because she carries that, like, I don't know, that bravado of like, like Captain Marvel, that not arrogant, that make, I don't want to, if you're watching Brie Larson or fans of Brie Larson, I am not saying you're arrogant. I am not saying that at all. I think it's similar to, like, in terms of the superhero thing, like Thor. The funny thing that Thor and her were having this like squabble with each other. It's like you got the two of the strongest superheroes in the Marvel universe arguing about who's the strongest. I thought that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
And it's like for Brie Larson to have that, like Lilith having that kind of standoffish approach in this world as like a defense mechanism, maybe.
Yeah.
I think it made a lot of sense to me. I'm like, damn, this adds a whole nother level to why she could be the perfect one to at least envision as Lilith at the time with all this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And also if she's very conscious about her place in Hollywood and being part of the Me Too movement, I feel like she'd be conscious of people seeing those press junkets, and any little thing will be interpreted in any little way. And in a way, going along with somebody joking is like going along with the system of how, joking and sexual harassment and joking like this, I could see her being very conscious of just being, everything needs to be part of this promotion of this idea and this this movement. There's no playing along with anything, especially from a big beefcake like Chris Hemsworth. Even if it is very playful, maybe she's consciously like, no, everything, even when she's not in character. Obviously, when she's on a press junket and on a press tour, she needs to like maintain an image as well. But I can see that being maybe possibly her mentality of like everything is part of the mission, right? Which is kind of how we see things in our own way. There's not a moment where you're outside of what you're doing. Your mission in life, you're always on that mission. Whether or not you're actively in it or passively in it is one thing or another, but it seems like she's making a very conscious decision to be aggressively active in it, no matter what the situation is, which could come off as arrogance and might be arrogance. Like I said, I have to do some research as well. But sometimes that's required. But also the other side of that, calling people sexist when it had nothing to do with the conversation or this or that, just because she's a woman and this man doesn't like this thing doesn't make it sexist. She would be making it sexist by saying that it's sexist,
Yeah.
So there's a back and forth about it, and I can see, when you're so deep into it and you're like, I don't know, looking at your image from outside of your image, but also from inside of your image, it's easy to get caught up, and you don't know where your tail ends and your head begins. So, and she's still young, but I don't know. So it could go a lot of ways, but it definitely deepens her character and research and her path. It's always interesting to see these people that are in the forefront of, that are characters in real life, and the paths that they go on, and just like, the Justin Biebers or the just anybody who's gone through ups and downs and arounds, and Britney Spears and who am I trying to think of from what's his name? Anyway, just like, these people, they just go through stages where they're the golden child, and then they're kind of crazy, and then they build up a little, self-esteem, and then they're very opinionated, and then later on they're in retrospect and they're like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have said that, and then they go another way, and then they get confident again, and then they get wise, and then they get quiet, and then they get crazy at the end because they don't give a fuck anymore. So this is just part of her path, I'm sure. But sometimes people stay away and stay one way for a long time. So maybe this is just that's just how she is, and she's very assertive and relentless and confident, and maybe a bitch, and maybe not, maybe aggressive, maybe not, maybe she's playing a character. Maybe after all the Marvel stuff is done, she'll be like super chill again. I don't know. I mean, who's to say? But it is definitely an interesting plot twist after our Mandala Monolith experience of like thinking that she fits the mold pretty well, without knowing a lot about her at the time. But now that there's this stuff going on, it definitely thickens the plot a bit, which is
Yeah.
only good for us, I guess.
Yeah, it is. It is. I love what you said. All that stuff I completely agree with. I think
Oh,
a
no
big
way. We agree with each other? No way.
again, really? That's exactly what I think, dude. That's crazy. That is fucking crazy.
That's cool.
But yeah, that's I think a huge part of this is people not. It's like we act like we know these people, like not just you and I, but we as the royal we.
Shia LaBeouf. That's who I was trying to think.
Shia LaBeouf, yes, exactly. Like off the fucking deep end. Where the fuck did he go? And now he's like totally taking green.
Sorry, yeah.
Come on, yeah. But it's like we act like we know these people. I mean, they're a big part of our lives. We're so immersed in the media, and it's like at times if these people that we love do something that we disagree with, we feel betrayed or something, and we assume we know exactly what's going on based on just an interview. We're reading. I think a lot of times we read way too much into stuff, and that a lot of the review videos and stuff I've read about this whole matter are people like, oh my God, she was so like speaking so matter of fact about what she was thinking and feeling. And let's be honest, we don't know what the fuck she was thinking or feeling. We're just going on the reaction to what we saw in that limited thing. And yes, of course, we need to observe and absorb those things to a certain extent, but we got to remember that we don't know these people. And then another thing that you said I really liked was with the whole thing that even though it's Chris Hemsworth, and because that's the thing, everybody's been saying, or a lot of people have been saying, it's like, Chris Hemsworth was just, having fun and, he didn't mean it and kind of making these excuses. And maybe he didn't. Maybe he did. Maybe he was just playing along. But at the same time, it's like, what? We're gonna excuse that behavior just because it's Chris Hemsworth? And, then it comes to another level of thinking, okay, well, what is acceptable? What is not acceptable? How far do we need to advocate and defend a movement? Like, is there any wiggle room anymore? Can anyone poke fun if you're a man? Can you poke fun at a woman? It's like the same thing of, like you're not allowed to hit on women anymore because that's, misogynistic or something. Like the whole thing is kind of adjusting the way, like the game, how we play the game, what's acceptable, what's appropriate, what's not. So, but it was just kind of funny that you get all these people that are most by and large very diehard like movie or comic book fans giving Chris Hemsworth a pass for saying those things, which I think, again, this is just my opinion. I don't think he was doing it intentionally to be a misogynistic person. It just seems like the way he is. For example, there was another Avengers panel where you had, I think it was Chris Hemsworth. Yeah, it was Chris Hemsworth, Brie Larson, and Don Cheadle. And the question was, who is the number one hero that you believe in? I'm gonna fuck this up, but oh yeah. So Don Cheadle said Nelson Mandela. That's his hero. Brie Larson said something like, I want to say like Rosa Parks or something like that. She, some strong, prominent woman figure. And then Chris Hemsworth was like Falcor from the Neverending Story. So it's like, I think that kind of, and it was in the same interview that other thing happened. That just, so when Chris Hemsworth was saying those other things to Brie Larson, you take that into the Falcor grain of salt. Like, this guy said Falcor is his fucking hero. Like, how serious are you going to take anything from this guy in that situation?
Right.
So that was another little thing, and that Brie Larson was getting really, what seemed at least to be pissed off with, like saying, what are you going to be, the next Tom Cruise? And she's like, no, I will be the next me. Very, thank you much. It's just oh shit. And they were, there's a lot to assume, a lot of the game and changing and everything like that. But back to the future here. This only helps our scenario. Like, I think this is great for the character of Lilith. This brings more potential, I think, from Larson of what she could bring to the table. Have you been watching the show Barry? Do you watch that at all?
No, I've heard of it. Refresh my.
This is Bill Hader on HBO, and he's like a ex-assassin, but like used to be in the military, and he's killed so many people. He's sort of a John Wick type of person, but he wants to stop being John Wick, and he wants to change his life, so he signs up to be in acting school, where Henry Winkler is the acting coach. It's on
Okay.
HBO. So they just started their second season, and I highly recommend it. It's a great show. Very funny, but also very dramatic at the same time. But there's a part, without giving too much away, these actors, one of the teacher, Henry Winkler, has gone through something very serious. He wants to stop being an acting teacher. And Barry, played by Bill Hader, is trying to, this is the only thing he has to keep him human. So he's trying to bring him back. And Henry Winkler comes back and says, all right, the only condition I'll come back is if we all, as a class, individually act out the most horrible time that ever happened to you, the most vulnerable you've ever been. So every single actor has to basically write a script of their own of the most horrible thing that's ever happened. And obviously it's very cathartic and therapeutic, and a lot of the actors don't want to do it because it makes them uncomfortable to do something that was so horrible to them. And so like Barry's trying to reconcile and try to, how can I be honest without being honest about what really was the most fucked up thing? How can I make this, it's just the issue of the dark side and dealing with your dark side. I feel like that applies to how, if with Brie Larson as Lilith, like as Lilith, like I want to see more of that. I want to see more of this like aggressive, like, thank you very much, but no. I want to see like get into that. I want to see more of that as Lilith, because that seems very interesting. And it's a complete opposite of like Francis Bacon, like
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, that's one of the things that Aaron Sorkin said when he was like during his master class, which I constantly reference, obviously. But he was like, let the actors finish the character. Like you create the character and you mold it and you shape it, but they're the ones who are the character in the end, and they're gonna finish it. They're gonna smooth it all out and tighten it all up and provide all of the backstory, because these actors have had a whole life of backstory, right? And then the character is going to be their interpretation of the character, right? Not the actual character that we came up with or Uncle Bruce came up with. It's going to be their interpretation. So her going through more things like this and being this way is only it's only developing Lilith's character, right? And giving her more experience to know what to do when, the lights are on and someone calls action. And then she takes all these experiences, maybe thinking about Chris Hemsworth, maybe thinking about Samuel L. Jackson, and acts in accordance to those experiences. So yeah, it's interesting that it's happening, and I hope it doesn't get to a point where it's like super confrontational or like bad for her, or something blows up, or like an internet tweet war or something like that. I don't know, maybe that'll be fine. I mean, people have survived those before, but I hope it doesn't get to a catastrophic point. But I mean, anything below that is entertaining and character building. So and good for her for being a strong person. I mean, I'm sure it's tough to be an attractive woman in Hollywood or in life, or a woman in life, obviously, let alone a very attractive, successful woman who is out in the spotlight and sexual and very easily sexualized, I'm sure, throughout her whole life. So I get the trying to be very stern about it and allowing no wiggle room, because if, like they say, give an inch, they take a mile, and give a mouse a cookie, they're going to ask for some milk. So you got to just stay strong with it.
Yeah, 100%. No cookies, no milk for anyone.
No cookies, no milk, no nothing. No, nothing.
Santa comes this year, don't give milk and cookies, because that's then what Santa going to want after that. He's going to come and it's like, all right, well, Santa made a request and he needs your left leg for if you want those gifts.
Well, yeah. Well, I was more along the lines thinking of I saw Mama kissing Santa Claus, and that's what happens after the cookies and the milk. And then after that,
what's your mom doing? How about the cookies and milk? Where's your mom at?
Exactly.
Yeah, Santa Claus, the classic misogynistic jolly man. Jolly my ass.
He's drunk all the time. It's okay.
Yeah, so this only, I can see this being only a positive thing, especially talking with you now. It's working out these ideas, because yeah, like watching this all go down, I was thinking exactly that. I'm like, oh damn, I really hope this doesn't there's no major fallout from this. But then again, I'm impartial to a certain extent, but I am also optimistic that it's I mean, this is not this is not unconventional for people in the spotlight to be under some sort of scrutiny in some way. Like, that's totally normal. Obviously, the circumstances of surrounding it are more amplified because of social media and all the Me Too stuff and everything. So, we'll see where it goes. But after, talking about this even now, it just makes that much more sense that she would be the type of person to roll. And even if it's, let's just say it's not, it's at least making me think more about Lilith and the types of stuff that she would be. It's like the complete opposite of what Francis Bacon was, where even at that first scene of Mandala at the Matrix Rock Club, where, everyone wants to see the fabric, and Lilith is a huge superstar, but it's almost like it would make sense that she's not just unanimously beloved by everybody. There's going to be fucking people that fucking hate her. And Taylor Swift again. The fucking haters are going to hate. That's it almost makes it's again, I need to watch that Taylor Swift thing again, because that's what is it called? Reputation. Yeah. Getting a shitty reputation, just being like, fuck that, I'm going to be Taylor Swift anyway. Same thing with Lilith in that way, but a lot more like substantial than Taylor Swift. I could see Lilith and the whole, even the Brie Larson stuff of all this being like a women's movement is more substantial than just like, you make bad music, I don't listen to you because you make stupid music. It's way more than that.
Well, right. That's part of the path that we went on, and the things that we discovered is that Lilith is a human, and it's about her being a human and what she wants and what she doesn't want, and what she's been through and how she feels, instead of like the coolness of the surroundings and the technology and the conspiracy and all that stuff, and then just throwing a human like a ping pong ball in there and just letting it bounce, or a pinball and just letting it bounce around amongst all the plot devices. Like, that's what Francis Bacon was. He was just in there getting pinged around just with a smile on his face the whole time. And now it's like, now she's dictating where she's getting pinged, and she has feelings and opinions about it, and doesn't care if she doesn't go this way or doesn't go that way. She's a little bit of a bad girl, or just like, she, at the point where we see her, where we meet her, she's been through so much, and she's already been successful, so she's not trying to like be out there and impress anybody, which is possibly where Brie Larson is at this point. She doesn't need to be out there kissing anybody's ass or putting on a pretty face just to be like, hopefully she gets signed for another big movie. It's like, no, she's at the borderline pinnacle of her career right now. So she doesn't need to appease to anybody, especially if Netflix is tweeting out on her behalf as well. So she's got like an army behind her, so she can do fuck it. She doesn't give a shit if she's got an opinion, and she's got a mission, and she's got people that she's standing up for, and personal experiences or experiences of friends and stuff like that she's defending, and a culture that she's trying to get rid of, which was a horrible, shitty culture that we know because of Harvey Weinstein and all those guys. Like, we know what even our teachers in film school would tell us about how it was, and how misogynistic it was, and how people would get jobs because they gave jobs. And that's just a lot of how it was and how it is and how it will be for a little bit. But I don't blame her for taking advantage of the platform that she has. But of course, people are going to take that one way or the other.
Chris Hemsworth was just joking.
Yeah, and he probably was just joking, and he doesn't mean anything by it. But I mean,
still, it's like she's holding her ground. I respect that. It's not easy, and that.
But there is like an overcorrection issue too. It's like, you don't need to reply to these people on Twitter who are just saying,
a fucking nobody that had no followers.
I haven't read these tweets, but it's like, I know it's okay to, but sometimes it's best to, even though it's bad in a lot of situations to ignore things, but there's a lot of a lot of circumstances and situations where it's totally okay and better to ignore that and not give the person the power, right? My mom talks about fucking her fifth grade, not fucking her. My mom talks about her fifth graders, and when they're misbehaving, you don't indulge them, right? You don't say, hey, what are you doing? Stop doing that. Because they're going to keep, it just gives the situation more energy, right? And if you ignore it like a puppy, if she's crying in her crate, and I come in and I'm like, stop, please stop, she'll keep doing it because I'm giving her attention because of her behavior. But if you ignore the behavior and give her no reward for the behavior, or give this Twitterer no reward for tweeting that stuff out, then they'll go away and they'll handle themselves. But if you give them the energy and the attention and you retweet it, it's just giving them more power. So there are certain situations where it's really good to stand up for yourself and your people and your cause. And there are certain situations where it's a bad idea to kind of give credence or any energy in general to these things that would just take care of themselves or just go away. Like
you said, overcorrection.
But yeah, it's an overcorrection because the society's been such a way for so long, such a bad way, one-sided on the men's side, where men could just go around and grab asses and kiss a girl or grab her by the pussy or rape her and not get in trouble. How many times did that happen over history? A billion, trillion, bajillion, and nobody got in trouble. It's so coming from that, I see how it is important to stay strong about it. But also, like you said, it's like you can get arrested now for hitting on a woman probably, or like even if it's just like going up to a girl at a bar, it's like they could, you can't touch them, you can't say anything, or it's like you're gonna buy him a drink. It's like, oh, you're gonna roofie me, or
or just buying him a drink. Like, excuse me, I could buy my own drink.
Or like, are you trying to get me drunk so you could take advantage of me? I'm not saying everybody does that, but there's this overcorrection where now men are like, a lot of guys, most guys are good people, right? But there's some fucking douchebags out there. We all know them. And there's some shitty women too. A lot of shitty women, a lot of shitty dudes, probably the exact same amount. But it's created the overcorrection culture where it's like now gentlemen are hesitant and kind of worried and scared that they're going to get like, something's going to happen to them just for thinking a girl is pretty. It's like, I'm sorry, I just appreciate it. Oh, so it's all about my looks. It's like, no, I'm just my genetics, dude. I thought you were pretty. I want to come over and talk to you. I'm not trying to steal you away from your friends. So it's just, but the girls, if I was a woman, I don't know how I would feel, but I could see me feeling empowered to be like, I don't need no man. Like, don't even fucking talk to me. Go away, like, you douchebag. Like, how dare you think that you can come over and just buy me a drink and then I'll sleep with you right off the bat. It's just like, so Brie Larson being like, don't even make a comment like that, did not literally saying that, but saying that in her attitude is like, it's necessary because they need to overturn so much shitty culture that's happened for so long. But it's also, it's a tough, we're in such a gray area and such a metamorphosizing area in all aspects of life where it's like things are tough to navigate because we're trying to make progress and we're trying to get rid of the old things, but nothing is like concrete. It's all very malleable and fucking gooey. So you don't really know what's appropriate or what's the best thing to do. So everyone, you either just be yourself and laugh it off and make jokes like Chris Hemsworth, which is probably just how he deals with most of life, or you take it super fucking seriously, like Brie Larson. It's just that but I think you lose a lot of the time both ways. So
yeah, there needs to be that balance and that middle ground, and it's just so ironic that it's between Thor and Captain Marvel, the strongest Avengers of the whole situation, having that So it's somewhere in the middle. We got a lot of work to do in that respect, learning how to have more compassion, be more forgiving, know the right time to intervene, know when not to intervene, really having mindfulness, but like you said, being able to like brush it off, but also take things seriously. So yeah, it's like the boundaries, the new boundaries are really becoming more defined now. And it's cool. It's interesting to see where it goes. But with all that current events and social commentary stuff in mind, again, just brings a whole nother level of dimensionality to what Lilith's all about and what she represents and how she is viewed in the world, how she views herself and all that stuff. It's just very inherent with all the things we talked about at the Monolith, but also now in a real world setting. Like we knew we had an instant connection with Brie Larson as having this, resonant quality with Lilith. But now after all this stuff, it's kind of taken a real life. It's not just, okay, play a character that, could be like this. Now it's way more real than we were, in reality at the time.
It's like growing on its own now. Like now it's become its own entity, and it's morphing and growing and learning in ways that we didn't expect. But it's like self-aware. It's like now she knows she's like. Did all this stuff start happening after we went to New York, or did it like start happening before that?
Yeah, good question.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
And we're not claiming to have anything to manipulate.
Yeah,
Brie Larson, two white men. Like
yeah. This was all our. we we are the Barnhart.
No, Brie, we didn't do that. We didn't.
No. We're just commenting,
in full support,
observing. I think
Mhm.
it's clear here. I hope it's clear at least that we respect you, Brie, and understand that this is a unique situation to be going through, and also admire your approach. Would not assume to tell you or to think what you should or should not do. It's definitely a learning process that it's exciting to watch. So yeah, I watched Unicorn Store and I thought it was good. But just don't hate me if I didn't say I absolutely loved it.
Well, you're being honest, and I think it kind of goes back to Daenerys and Jon, and it's like how the best way to navigate these malleable in between situations is communication, right? Explaining how you feel and how I feel, and then we can figure out and either come to a common ground or not. But if there's no communication, it's just like I feel this, therefore that. No matter what you think or feel, you have no say because of what your culture has done to my culture for the last millennia. It's like, no, it always needs to be an open dialogue. I mean, it's the same thing with my work environment and any relationship or friendship. You need to have the open dialogue and people to be honest with each other in order to have anything go. And so if you were saying anything but what you felt about Unicorn Store, it would be dishonest, and it would only promote dishonest culture and dishonest ideas. So honesty is the best way, and just being able to articulate it in non-aggressive, not mean ways.
God, she's so cute.
Such a little dick, though, but she's great. But yeah, got to be honest about it, right? Got to be honest, and I think open, no matter where you are, and that's tough. That's tough to be open to things when you feel like you're entitled or you're trying to accomplish something, but you got to listen to people.
Yeah,
and that's what Jon's really good at doing, and Daenerys is not the best at doing, except for what's his name? Her number. Jorah, yeah.
I think it's like out of all of the people that could advise her the best now, I think it's got to be her. I mean, Jorah, especially after that whole Sam thing.
Yeah.
Like, who's going to be out of her entourage? Who's going to be the best advisor? Originally, Tyrion was up there, but I think this first episode showed like he's out of his element now. I don't know if it didn't really dawn upon me until watching this that, like, with that conversation that he had with Sansa on the ledge there, it's like Cersei told you that they're coming up to fight for you, and you believed her. And he's like, well, she has something to fight for. It's like, you used to be the cleverest man in the realm. It was like, I didn't really think about it until then, because last season it was just the tension of like, oh my God, Cersei could just kill Tyrion right now. It's like, do it, just kill me now. It's like, so I think there was that, oh, okay, we're having some sort of, after all these seasons and the angst between the two of them, just having some sort of peace between Cersei and Tyrion. It was like, oh, okay, it just kind of clouded or distracted from the fact that Cersei's not going to fucking do what she said she was going to do. And then it was up until that scene where it's like Sansa's like, and you actually believed him. And then at the meeting in front of all the lords of the North, and Tyrion thought it'd be a good time to get up there and be like, oh yeah, and by the way, the Lannister army's coming up here too. It's like, what the fuck? Why did you say that right now? These people don't trust this as it is. What the fuck are you thinking?
Yeah, that was a lot of that seemed like, I don't know. That seemed out of character for him for sure, because he's usually good at reading the situation and being confident and knowing what to say, right, and what to do. But yeah, you're right. That was the wrong time to do that. So they definitely are pushing Tyrion out, it seems like, or, like he's not on he's not someone you're going to go to now or expect to like make something happen. It seems like he's kind of a little bit lost
Yeah.
in this moment. So I don't know where he's gonna. He's capable of anything, obviously, but
I think his biggest purpose or role as an advisor and strength was at least was helping advise Daenerys up until Dragonstone and all the stuff that was going on with the South. But now that the White Walkers are the prevailing threat, and even with the new intro, which I thought was really cool, it instead of starting at King's Landing and then going to Winterfell, it started at the Wall and then did Winterfell and then eventually went down to King's Landing. So the new hub of center of the realm is in the north, and Tyrion's domain was always in King's Landing and Casterly Rock and the west and all that. Right. So now that that's like not his, he hasn't been in that world in a long time. And now this whole thing with the White Walkers, he's sort of a, I mean, I don't want to say a throwaway character because he's certainly not a throwaway character, but in terms of being an advisor to Daenerys, give the best possible advice, I don't think so. But that's where Jorah comes in, I think. Jorah, as somebody who was in her good graces since the beginning, had a falling out and proved himself back to be important and viable again. And having gone north of the Wall to capture that White Walker with Jon and having that connection with him being, Jorah's father was the Lord Commander that chose Jon. So they have a really tight relationship. So it makes sense that, because I think, if anything, now that we're thinking about it, it's like Daenerys needs a solid advisor. If she fucking has no advisors around her, that's not going to be good for anybody.
I agree.
And she'll just like go off the deep end, go rogue, and just be like, I don't know. Because she needs to. She has that power. She has that authority, and she has earned it for sure. But now there are totally new circumstances she was not anticipating that only Jon really has the wherewithal to understand the direness of. So I think Jorah could be the nice, help settle that fucking dispute once it happens. But I'm still rooting for that like makeup sex in the snow thing after the dragon chase. I'm really hoping for that.
That is highly probable. At least one good Well, we didn't get a sex scene between Cersei and what's his name, the Iron Islands guy.
We didn't see it.
We didn't see it. We
saw the aftermath.
Certainly insinuated, and then we got the beginning of Bronn, with those three ladies, right? Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, Sir Bronn. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's the potential Arya and Gendry connection. They were that was cool to see her acting more like a human being, because the last couple seasons she's just been like cold-blooded, dead-eye assassin.
Right.
And now we're seeing her smile more, and I'm still like a little thrown off by her saying that Sansa's the smartest person in the whatever, because and even still there was that little scene with Jon and Arya, and Jon finally he puts his hand on his shoulder and it's like, Sansa thinks she's smarter than everybody else. I was like, the first time I was waiting for him to say that for a long ass time, but especially since season 6 and all the shit that went down and Sansa going off and getting Littlefinger to bring the Knights of the Vale. It's like, fucking bitch, like you like communicate better. It's like there's so many times I'm like, fucking Sansa, and Jon just kind of went with it.
Yeah.
But this is the first time that you hear him say, fuck Sansa, she's a bitch.
And he was probably he's waiting for it, right? Because Arya, he felt like Arya would be the only one that would understand, right?
Yes, and she's like, well, she's the smartest person in the room, and he's like, really?
Yeah, right.
You're saying that? Really? Yeah. It's like, yeah, I don't get that either.
But she's too smart for her own good. Arya is. So I mean, I can see that her saying that to just kind of poke Jon, and because he is perceived as a bitch right now, and she's trying to harden him up a little bit.
Yeah, and another funny little thing too is the whole thing. It's like I'm just looking out for our family, and Jon's like, I'm in your family too. Like, they still think he's a bastard, and even though they grew up with him and by affiliation he's their brother, but still, according to the law or on paper, let's just say, he's a bastard, so he's technically not a Stark. He's technically not a Stark, but he's a Stark to us. It's like that kind of weird thing. It's like, just remember, just remember. He's like, look, I'm your family too, and she's just like, just remember that. It's like we forget the very basic thing that every single person in that show and in reality is half and half of two different houses. Unless you're fucking Joffrey or Tommen or one of Cersei and Jaime's kids. They're pure Lannisters. But right. Arya, Sansa, Bran, they are all half Stark, half Tully. So it's just kind of weird. It's just funny that they're like, remember that like we're Starks. But right at the same time you find, it's disclosed he's half Targaryen as well. So it's just, they're so caught up in like we're Starks, but hey, well, fuck, you're half of everything. There's no one that's pure anything. So it'll be interesting to see how that all kind of transpires how that conversation is going to go.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't even know enough. Like we're having at work, we have a trivia every week, like a generic trivia, but this week, tomorrow actually, they're doing a Game of Thrones trivia.
Oh, nice.
And the owner is going to be there, and with a couple of his friends or whatever, and he's like, "You're welcome to join and get some more people." And like when I think about it, I wouldn't be good at the trivia. Like I don't know enough. I know more than like the layman, just because I've watched the series and I've been with it. Well, not only since like the third or fourth season, but there's so much shit that I still has gone over my head, and I can't even like. I'm just thinking about a map. If you like mapped everything out, like the connections of people and who's got what bloodline and where they were in the first season and the path they've gone on to the current season. I'm just still very, honestly, of the like connoisseurs I am on the surface level of Game of Thrones. So I'm still like barely following it, but talking about it with people really, really helps. Like anytime I see my buddy Sam or other people who are watching it at work, we'll kind of recap and similar to what we've been doing and refresh our memories and give each other's like, our theories and stuff like that. But I'm going to need to give it another go. Like once the series is complete upon itself, I'll have to, witness it again in its full completion to really understand and comprehend everything, because I still like there's so much that I've missed that I can't even think about what may or may not happen and what it may or may not mean. I feel like someone's going to need to translate it after it's done to me. After I'm watching it, at the final episode and it ends, and I'll be like, oh, however I feel. And then I'll need somebody to sit down and be like, okay, well, this meant this meant this meant this, and this is actually what happened. Therefore, all of this means nothing and all of this means everything. And so I don't know. I'm just on a roller coaster right now. So it's kind of like you've talked about. I remember we talked about this with La Scala whenever we'd be having experiences at the house, and he'd want to like talk about how he's feeling about the experience, and be like, dude, you're on a roller coaster. You don't talk about the nuts and bolts of the roller coaster when you're on it. You just ride it. And then at the end of it is you're like, you can recap and stuff like that. So as much as I love talking about it, I still feel like I'm still on the ride and I don't know what I'm talking about, because when you're going that fast, you can't really perceive anything correctly until it's over, and then you're sitting back and you're looking at the roller coaster and you're thinking about how you felt, and you're like, oh wow, okay, now I see.
Yeah, and it's not just a movie or a show; it's based on books. When I watch videos of people reviewing or discussing the nuance of Game of Thrones that have read the books, that I think I got a pretty good working knowledge of a lot of the characters as far as the show is put forth. But when I watch stuff with the people talking about the books and the way, way more detailed stuff, I thought that shit goes over my head. And it's like, yeah, I clearly, nothing, Jon Snow.
Exactly.
That's like how I feel a lot of times. And it's right now, especially, man, I think it was a record number of people watching that episode like live than had ever watched a show live before around the world. It was some record crazy 100 million people or something like that.
And that'll like quadruple for the final. You know it will. It's going to be the biggest event in television history by far.
Yeah, which is crazy to think about. That all the shows and movies and like sporting events like the Super Bowl and everything that have happened, or soccer tournaments, all that. Just to think, I don't know how it would weigh into soccer, because I'm sure that, I mean, that's more of a world.
The World Cup would definitely probably be up there for most watched, like worldwide. But this is, as far as a drama, like a written show, this has got to be. I can't even imagine how many people. But for the finale, it'll be astronomical.
And the fact that it's not broadcast TV, it's something that people have to basically pay for to watch.
And all those numbers are skewed, right? Because a lot of people watch them with a group of people.
Yep.
Like I watched it with like 7 or 8 people last week, but the numbers were still crazy for like.
Yes.
So you multiply that by 5 probably at least.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, it's a huge cultural phenomenon. A great social commentary on world events and the drama. I would say that the Wire is like Shakespeare in modern day, and it definitely is. But Game of Thrones, even maybe more so, at least at this point, because of how it's in the fantasy world. It's got that very like King Arthur kind of vibe to it at times, and yeah, it's epic. It's super fucking epic, and yeah,
I think that's why it's more appealing than shows like The Wire, is because it is the quality of The Wire, but with all the bells and whistles that you can't have in The Wire. With fucking it's literally everything. It's like dragons and the dead army and just everything that's so fantastic. It's just like it hits all of the cylinders for for humans who love stories. Yeah. Love stories, so it does everything for us.
Yeah, I get into these conversations about it with my mom, talking about the ending and going over possible theories. And I have theories of what the ending will be, but like you were saying before, we're on the roller coaster here. I don't want to put too much thought into it. I put my trust in the showrunners to such an extent, more than something like even The Sopranos, where when that came to an end, so many people were pissed off, and some people would think it was lazy writing. And in a way it was. It had good meaning to it. How else would you end that? Questions like that. But since The Sopranos, they've had so many shows, like even Breaking Bad, not HBO, obviously, but they've had these types of creative people have had enough experience now to understand how is the best way to end a show. It's not going to necessarily be a happy ending or just an awful ending, but something that's satisfying and also very dramatic. With all the theories that I've talked about with my mom and other people about the ending, I try not to put too much thought into it. We're on the roller coaster. I just know, though, I have a good feeling at least that it's going to be satisfying. It's gonna be epic and hard as fuck, but it's gonna be satisfying way more than The Sopranos was, or even Breaking Bad for that matter. I think it's gonna be like one of those holy shit. Like there's so many ways they could take it where it's not just gonna be it's hard to say whether it's going to be resolved or not, but even if it isn't resolved, I feel like it's still going to be great.
I agree. It almost can't not. I mean, they're asked an impossible task at this point to end the series to please 20 million people. But I think just based on the quality that it's had, like Lost and other shows have had kind of wavy seasons or a couple episodes where it's like they don't know what they're kind of got lost in their own storytelling. They didn't really know where they were going, but they found their way out. But in the middle there, it was kind of wishy-washy, whereas the Game of Thrones really hasn't ever had that kind of lack of quality. It's been fairly consistent, and especially season-wise, they've always had a couple of things that were just like, fuck, they were always, like you said, very satisfying. They were able to find that vibe that kind of hit everybody and gave them what they wanted, even though they didn't know that that's what they wanted. And I think most people would expect that they will be satisfied and they won't be let down. Nobody's worried like, oh no, I hope they do it right. I mean, people are like, they're saying that, but they're not worried that they're going to be like blue balled on it and they're going to be like, fuck no, that was horrible. Nobody's going to be upset online, like, that was the worst ending of all time. Oh my God, that was just like Dexter when Dexter ended. Like, it would never be anything like that, because Dexter, nothing can be worse than the end of Dexter.
Yeah.
I love that show. But I think that's the one nice thing that we don't have to worry about is being underwhelmed. I think it's not going to end in a black frame in the middle of a dragon fight scene. Like, it's not going to happen that way. There's going to be something that happens. It's going to stop. The scene's going to be over. It's going to come to a climax. And
people we love are going to get killed, and that's not something. That's something we've been prepped for throughout the whole show since season 1. The very end of season 1, their number 1 A-list actor gets beheaded. So I remember watching that thinking, like, what? They just killed their fucking A-list actor? Yeah, where's this show going to go now?
Right, exactly.
That's it. Like, how could this show be any good after that? And obviously it only got better from there.
Right. So they know what they're doing. And like you said, you just got to trust in the process. But it's hard. It's impossible not to think about what's going to happen and who might do this and who might do that. So it's super fun. It's great. It's a great ride to be on. But I think I'm just gonna, whatever happens, I think I'll enjoy it regardless of who dies.
If you need a lifeline at your a secret lifeline at your trivia night, and there's a question, and you get to sneak in a little question, I'll be more than happy to help. If
sweet, good to know. Good to know. Yeah. That'll be. Do you know if they're taking a week break at any point, or are they gonna? Is it gonna be every Sunday until it's over?
I think it's every Sunday.
Okay.
I think it's every Sunday. They fucking better do it every Sunday. I mean, after 2 years of, I guess it wouldn't matter. There was a lot of people. Like my mom was really upset. She's like, "This wasn't long enough." She was just so pissed off that the episode wasn't like 2 hours long.
Right.
And I get that after 2 years of nothing, and then there's this. It's like, oh fuck, like want more. But that's just the nature of these shows and the episodic nature. You got to get used to that. We're so accustomed to the binge watching mentality. It's all available. We can just go one to the next, and that was how Lost was for us. But then, like, once, what was it, season 4 came on, season 5, we were all watching it as it was airing.
I think it was 4. I think we started at 4.
Okay. Yeah, because we started, and then it was, and then having to.
No, it wasn't. You're right. It was 5.
Was it 5? Yeah, because
Jeremy had 1 through 3, and then we had to download, or at least I had to download 4.
Right.
5 was where we were live. Yeah.
And that's when shit got really crazy. So it was every end of the episode, it was worse then too, because there were commercials in between the episodes. Yeah. So not only would you have to wait it to the end of the episode, but every 10, 15 minutes, it'd be like, well, let's go to a show, Gillette shaving. Like, what the fuck? Just fucking screaming at the TV and shit. So that was amplified even worse. But now people who are used to the, like, binge watching thing, my dad's all caught up to it now. And that was the thing. Like, now we have to wait. Okay. We have to wait a week, another week. But I like that. I enjoy that. It's just because before we know it, it's going to be fucking over, and then it's over.
Yeah.
So this is fun. Being on the ride. We're on the fucking roller coaster.
We're on the ride, and it's okay if there's a week break, or a 2-week break or whatever. It'll be worth it to build the suspense, and HBO thinking about it as a marketing thing. It can only, the more time they give in between, the better for them, because people are still talking about it. I mean, you can measure, on Twitter and on everything, how much is being talked about. So it's fun. It's kind of a fanatic, wild thing. And it was, I don't know if we talked about this, but Wisconsin weather is very scattered and ridiculous and unpredictable, but it is technically spring. But last Sunday we got a big snowfall. And everyone was just like, what the fuck is this? And, like, thinking about it, it's like, in ancient Japan, after an emperor would die, the people would know that there would, like, monsoons would come after that because of, like, the collective sadness or the collective energy change of that. Like, they would literally create monsoons consciously as a collective. So it was like, all right, the first fucking, what has the tagline been of this show for eons? Winter is coming. And then it hasn't snowed in months. And then on the Sunday premiere of the final season, it fucking snows like 2 or 3 inches here, and it's just like, of course it fucking did.
Yeah.
And I was like, that wasn't like a weather thing. That was a conscious collective thing that we like literally made it snow that one day, and that was the only day it snowed. So very glad. That just shows to me how in our consciousness this fucking show is right now. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, there was when we were watching that episode premiere, there was also this in our house. We had this really insecure feeling because we had HBO through Amazon, and a couple of days before that, I realized that it wasn't, since Amazon was a third party. The like episodes of Last Week Tonight and Bill Maher and stuff like that were not coming on until the next day. So it was like, okay, this is not good. We need to, like, it's 6 o'clock. We're fucking watching Game of Thrones, and we need to make sure that's the case. So we ended up switching to HBO Now, so it's directly to HBO. But there was still that, it was like 5 to 6, 5 minutes of, and I'm refreshing HBO, and it's still not there. And I'm just like, shit. And sure enough, as soon as 6 o'clock rolled on, refresh it, boom, it was there. So I was like, thank God. So there's that, oh my God, is it going to work? And so we're watching it. And there were a couple times it was buffering a bit, which I would imagine has got to be because there were so many people watching it at that exact moment. And it was playing perfectly fine right up until the moment where Jon Snow gets on the dragon. And she's like, well, I've enjoyed your company, Jon Snow. And he gets on the dragon, just as about to take off, fucking cuts to black, goes to buffering. And we're just like, what? No! Like, right there, it was right at that moment, it was like the adjustment bureau was just like, all right, and turn it off. What? We were so freaked out. I was like, oh my God, what do we do? And just all we had to do is like stop it and refresh it. And it was fine. But it was just talking about one of those moments watching a TV show or like, no, was, in fact, it had to have could have been the buffering, but also it must have been the anticipation. I really feel like it was all the people watching it, really wanting to see it, and then it was just like overload into the internet waves with our consciousness. Like, and just turned off for a second.
Fucking exactly, man. That doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, it's something else. This is something else. I don't think there has been anything like this, at least this unifying, we always love telling stories as humans, and you and I in particular, and anybody, I mean, that's just how we've passed on everything. And this is like the ultimate story, similar as to how Lord of the Rings was a worldwide phenomenon as well. But the fact that this is happening like week by week, and it's given all these years, 10 years or something of building up, fan base, that it's just like that. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me that like everyone was anticipating it so much that we overloaded the system and just couldn't fucking handle it.
Yeah. The collective consciousness just totally. We literally changed the weather, overloaded the internet, all of these things, and we're all worried, like, is the world going to come to an end because we're over polluting everything? How are we going to fix this? What should we do? It's like, look, we could literally make it snow when we really believe winter is coming, and we can also just like shut the internet off with the power of our minds. If we all put our fucking consciousness together for a second, quickly we could just change the weather.
Yeah.
That's so hilarious, man. And it's all like surrounding a TV show, right?
Exactly. A fucking ridiculous TV show, but it makes perfect sense to you and me. So,
yep.
I mean, if we can somehow conjure up all of that connection energy and make everyone just get that excited about global warming or changing, global politics or perception of males or females or anything, it seems like if we were able to connect all for, whatever the 100 monkey theory, whatever the amount of people we would need, seems like all we'd need is a second to fix everything. If we could just build up to that moment where we're all feeling the same thing, thinking the same thing. And then all of a sudden just like connect it and switch it. And then be like, oh, we did it. There it was. That was it. We solved that problem. Now all we got to do is solve the other problem, but it doesn't take 100 years. It just takes a second.
Just takes 1 second and a coherent feeling of enough people. That's
Passion. And I think passion is part of it too.
Yeah. And it's just the power that is, it's like, it literally could just take a second, and that's what we need. That's what we need right now. And that's just the most it's like these shows and these types of experiences are experiments to see how we could all come together in a singular thought. What was that? Does she got a squeaky toy? Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. So that's awesome. Oh, it's all good.
Brought to you by Abigail Adams.
You go, Abigail Adams.
Sorry, but yeah, we were saying we need to fucking figure that out.
Yeah, it's
key.
Simulations. It's definitely possible. We're working up towards it, and we'll see what happens. A lot of conventions are being broken right now. Did you see the Bernie Sanders on Fox News town hall? I
didn't.
That was fucking nuts, dude. That was, talk about unexpected shit happening. Just is
it? Can I find it on YouTube? Probably.
Yeah. It's fucking Fox News Part 1 and Part 2 of Bernie Sanders town hall on a Fox News thing, and it was awesome. Really, there were a couple of things I was like, could have been done a little bit better, but overall, you would have. It seemed like it was an attempt of Fox News to like smear Bernie Sanders or something, and it just completely backfired on them.
Nice.
Everybody in the fucking room was just up in arms, excited as hell about everything Bernie Sanders was saying. And it's like, you could tell the Fox News hosts were really like, shit, this is not going as much, not going to plan. What do we do? They didn't have a backup plan. They like backed themselves, like, oh, all we need to do is get Bernie Sanders in here and we'll just, debunk everything he's got to say. And then it was just like completely fucking backfired on them. And he was on point. It was really good. The fact that it was on Fox too, like, really did not see that coming. So it gave me a lot of hope too, just like, and the polarized views on whether it's this or that, whatever sides, that if we were to, like we were saying before, communication, if we were to learn how to communicate better and not be afraid to talk to the quote unquote other side, realize that we're all on the same side here. The living. We're all breathing. That, as Jon Snow would say, like that then, like, we would start to realize that all of the imposed boundaries are just completely imposed, and they're by and large not the most important thing at all. So it was cool. I recommend it, man.
I definitely will check it out. But now I'm just thinking about how we can, first of all, if the other side of us, the dark side of us, is planning something to take advantage of this Game of Thrones phenomenon, because it seemed like
it
would be a good opportunity to do that. Or if the positive, the light side of us is planning something in conjunction with this Game of Thrones thing as well. I feel like it's an opportunity to have all these people synced up at the same time for something to happen. It would be a good positive mandala event opportunity. That's kind of why I was also asking if I'm sure the finale date is already set, but it would be really interesting to see if something can be done in conjunction with that, or to take. I remember David Wilcock would talk about, like, I don't remember where, but there was a time like when wizards, or when they were doing magic, and they'd like ring the big bell in the church in the town, and everybody was supposed to be banging, having sex at that time. That was like for the town time to bang is when they rang the bell, and then the wizards would like conjure up all the bang and sex energy when everyone like, hundreds of people were having sex, and all the energy would be in the air, and they'd take that energy and they'd use it to like manipulate things. And I feel like the same opportunity is there for Game of Thrones this entire season. It's only going to build up, and the energy is going to be there, and we've already made it snow and stop the internet. So something to think about, to, I don't know, even if you just did something on Twitter, #GOT, like, that'd be seen by 1 million people probably, even if it was just gibberish,
Yeah.
There's a lot of potential there.
Oh yeah. It's like, 9/11, everyone's glued to the TV. This is definitely an everyone glued to the TV scenario. Another image that comes to mind is Batman Forever with Jim Carrey using that little mind control device where every time like everyone was watching the TV with that thing spinning above it, and Jim Carrey's just sitting there in his throne, literally in a throne, just like sucking in all the fucking thoughts of everybody. That's definitely, yeah, especially the way that I reacted the moment that like the TV went black. In that fucking moment, just conscious mind was gone. It was just no! Like, how did that was so thinking back about that, that's a little scary how, it doesn't matter how fucking conscious you are, if you're committed to that show and something like that happens, go into, it's like talk about pushing the mandala button on everybody at that moment. And then the other thing too, like you brought up the dark side and the light side, instead of just thinking of a Barnhart type character exploiting this event as if that's separate from the entire film crew, I could see that, like, just a little context to what the point I'm trying to make with Limitless and Lucy, or the movie Limitless, where it seemed a little ambiguous about the ending of whether or not he was still on the pill or not. And like, what was the whole point of this is like, it's just changing the new guard. And I couldn't help but think, is this just like a big pharmaceutical industry commercial? Like it's all about taking the pill in order to do it. And then some would say, no, he wasn't on the pill, but it was a little ambiguous at the end. So I feel like even within the filmmaker world and the people that are collaborating to make that movie, there are, like, let's just say white hats and black hats. The producers that have the ratings in mind versus the artists that have the empathy and the movie vision and the creativity in mind. Sometimes it could be out of balance. But it'd be interesting because I think the Game of Thrones people, I feel like, or at least I would hope, I don't know, but I would hope that there is a balance between the light and the dark in there. And it's very inherent within that show in itself because you've got the fire and ice. Mm-hmm. It's about the fire and ice coming together and the White Walkers and the rest of the realm coming together. So it'll be interesting to see like an even new perspective where, like the end of the Dark Crystal, where you got, and I'm jumping around different references here, obviously, but like the end of the Dark Crystal, where you got the Skeksis and the Mystics, and it wasn't like a battle between the two, but it seemed like it would be. And then at the end, they come together and they create this new being. That it's like, if best case scenario, that's the type of event that would happen with Game of Thrones, something epic like that, where there's everything is falling apart like at the end of the Dark Crystal, but then there's some sort of uniting thing that we're all satisfied together. Or like we were saying before, that there's not going to be it's not going to be underwhelming, to say the least. There will be people that are, opinionated about it, just like not everybody goes to the Liquid Crystal show at the end of Mandala. Everybody there has a big effect. But I could see a lot of people in that collaborative process of making this show as seeing this is a great opportunity to exploit people.
Of course.
But then there's also, I would say, hopefully equal or more people that are using this as an opportunity to send a really positive message of some sort to people about bridging the gap.
Bridging the fire and the ice. I can see that. That would make a lot of sense. That's the only way that the story is like complete, right? Is if there's a fusion. Because if one wins and the other one loses, then it's just the same thing over and over again, right? It's just going to continue again. So I like that. I like that idea of the combination and like the end of the Dark Crystal, like creating something new from it, instead of just the same thing, just in a different way. I mean,
yeah, because that would be fucking depressing.
Yeah, right. And you don't want the war to just keep going. I mean, that's how. Yeah, you want change and you want evolution, right? You want something different. You want life to win. And life finds a way, as they say. So if it needs to meld with death in order to survive, then that's what it needs to do. Yeah. So maybe a version of that will happen in some metaphorical or literal way, but that's the only way to complete the story, right?
Yeah.
Fire and ice, not fire or ice.
Right, fire and ice, exactly. Yeah, so, yeah, we'll see. Then again, That's all our conscious thinking when we're watching the fucking show. It's like that fucking moment where, you know, the fucking shit happens. Like, fuck! Like, you know, all that shit's gone after the...
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I hear you. Yeah, okay.
there are no predictions.
Yeah, we'll see. Crazy, man. Well, I think might have to call it a show here. It's just about dinner time, and gotta get some movement. Been sitting down for a while.
Agreed, man. But I think without having a set path, I think we've walked a good one with our eyes closed, I guess. But we do that pretty well. So thanks for reinvigorating my excitement for Game of Thrones and just informing me of Brie Larson and all these other things. It's somehow all very different, but all very connected, as it usually is. So good stuff.
Yes, good stuff. Great conversation, and I hope you have a nice evening. Once I get this video finished, I'll upload that. Working on it right now.
Sweet.
And yeah, man, love you, dude. Great conversations as always, and
happy Good Friday, and as you guys would say, have a happy East.
Happy East. Yes, thank you for saying that. That's right. I'll definitely call you tomorrow, and we'll be in touch this weekend.
Sounds good, buddy. Love you. Good talking to you. Good seeing you. Have a good dinner. Tell the folks I say hello.
Will do. Give Machiavelli and Abigail a nice hug for me. Let them lick your nose a little bit.
I shall.
And for everybody watched to this point, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your company. All right, dude. Peace out.
Peace up, brother, man.